to establish what is it that you want to understand from your primary research. Therefore, you also see that discover, define, develop, and deliver also as the part, right? Your insights in secondary research have to lead to primary research. Largely, you build your user sets on one demographic. Explain how Gestalt principles are working in your screen. You try to do your high fidelity wireframes and you wasted a lot of time or something. It's a very non-standard bottom map. Basically, you have built it yourself. So, firstly, do you have that video with you? Will you be able to play it on your screen?
I can try.
Yes.
It's a Sunday evening. You're all cozy and done for the week. You just want to relax. What do you watch? I'm Sanjana, a 20-year-old UX enthusiast, and this is my case study on OTT platforms. The 10 steps I used are subparts of the 4 stages of the double diamond design process. This iterative process starts in a divergent manner with the discover stage. Firstly, I analyze the problem statements. Yes, statements, because there is a business and research aspect involved. According to the business problem statement, with the pandemic and the lockdown, there has been an increase in audience watching shows and movies on OTT platforms. People tend to get very confused with the large number of options available. An OTT app wants to make it easier for people to decide what to watch. Whereas the research problem statement focused on understanding people's behavior while trying to choose what to watch and the different factors that influence this decision. To dip my toes into the pool of my problem statements, I framed 5 W's and 1 H questions, not with the intention of getting answers, but figuring out the various areas of focus needed in further stages. For example, who are the users? How often do they use OTT apps? And what triggers their usage? The next step involved getting information from indirect sources. Secondary or desk research basically consisted of Googling, but trust me, it was not easy when I had no idea what exactly I was looking for. So, I went ahead and looked up the reasons for the rise of OTT platforms and the challenges affecting users, a major one being content discovery. I found statistics stating that there was a 75% age increase in viewership this year, and 90% of the views were from mobile devices. At this point, I recalled the Pareto principle stating that 80% of consequences came from 20% of causes, and therefore I decided to focus on the factors affecting decision making, which included mood, length of content, company, and much more. One conflicting information I found, though, was the preference for more content, while content discovery being the major challenge. Next, I got data firsthand from users during primary research. But is it needed to get better behavioral insights and to avoid assumptions? It was very necessary. First, I defined the type of audience I wanted to target. For example, young adults as well as working professionals. Secondly, I prepared a session guide to serve as an outline for the user interviews. It included introduction questions, general OTT questions, and specific decision making questions. So, the general OTT questions were like, when was the last time you used the platform? Whereas the decision making questions included the factors involved. Here are a few things I kept in mind before the interview, like avoiding biases and using past based probing. Next, I had to gather users to talk, which was definitely a task. I finally dove deep into the user interviews and spoke to 6 very different users. I got a lot of insights. A few statements made by the users were, my family gets really annoyed when I keep switching what we were watching. I spend way too much time finding what to watch. I could have watched something within that duration. A few things I learned at this stage was to listen carefully rather than thinking of the next question and to record the call. Trust me, that's very important. Next, I had to analyze the insights, which started by making user sets. I decided to consider the frequency of usage and I made 2 sets, anytime addicts and occasional visitors. Empathy maps that includes what the user says, does, and thinks and feels were made for both of the sets. For example, an occasional visitor thinks, I don't want to waste my time on 1 hour episodes. User personas were made next for the respective user set to have a better visualization of users. For example, Richa Gupta, a college student who is an anytime addict, takes into account the time of the day before deciding what to watch. The next stage is define. It starts off by consolidating and defining problems. I achieve this by framing how might we questions for particular areas that needed to be improved. So, how might we speed up the search process? How might we increase the personalization? How might we ensure the user selects content that is most suitable to them? How might we improve findability and organization? How might we enable users to quickly realize if the content was already watched? In the develop stage, I ideated for solutions for the HMW questions, which included categorization based on genre, language, using a folder system for the watch list, adding filters and checkboxes, and a few more. Before wireframing, that is, making a blueprint of the screens, I made a mental model of the screens that I wanted to include. Then, I sketched out my ideas on a paper roughly. Next, I jumped into a digital medium and started out by designing the components I'll be needing. I used Amazon Prime as my base application. It is important to note that I did not intend to improve this particular app. Instead, I focused on solving the decision making problem. I made a high fidelity wireframe on Figma for 10 screens. This took a very long time. I later realized the importance of a step by step process. Next, I made the actual UI design in the deliver stage with all the features I ideated. Firstly, I added user ratings for each content and I placed the categorization by genre and language on top. Next, I added a tick mark to signify the watched content. I organized content details using Gestalt principles. I added a search filter in the find section and incorporated a folder system in the download section. The last stage is the usability testing and arguably the most important, as feedback is received from actual users who will prove, disprove, and help improve my current design. I prepared a few questions based on past based probing and prototyped my screen so that the users could interact with the design. After receiving feedback, I analyzed and made changes accordingly. The users found the user ratings and search filters really helpful. One behavior insight was the instinct to go to the find page. Realizing its importance, I improved this page by adding trending searches and search by actors and a few other more small additions. Next, I was disproved by categorizing on top when trending content was preferred. Here, I realized that more content is better as long as it is organized. I also changed the signifier to improve discoverability. In the future, I hope recommendations can change based on daily mood. From this case study, I learned the importance to embrace imperfections, design for people, and not give up. S for L, thank you for listening.
Yeah. So, firstly, that was like wonderful presentation. I mean, I should say best presented video till now. Uh, it's exactly how I wanted someone to present. You know, I think 1 minute over the time. I think maybe
Yeah.
1 minute over the time, maybe, but still, there is a video guideline on how to make a video, and you have like exactly followed all the principles mentioned there. So very well explained. I mean, a lot of times I hear the video, but I'll have to still look at the case study to kind of understand. But you have like you know, you made people feel 8 minutes is too much to explain their case study. That is that's so I'm going to put this as one of the examples for sure. Okay, very very well presented. Next, amazing work, really good work. I mean, everyone who has seen, they might have clearly understood, but this is higher worthy work. Okay, I'm going to give feedback, but this is higher worthy work. I mean, you can really start applying to places with this. Okay, so amazing work. Okay, okay. Actually, you share your screen on the case study. We'll
Okay.
discuss about some of the things. I just have some questions about where you can maybe put a little effort to make those parts a little better. Or else, I mean, this is very, very good. Will it land you people calling you for interviews and all? Definitely it will. Okay. That is for sure. Of course, this girl is too young. She's doing some, what, third year? Huh? What are you doing?
Yeah, third year
So
engineering.
she's still in third year engineering. 1.5 year left for her to kind of go looking for jobs. But as she started, here is a 20-year-old. You know how they start the college speeches and function. But yeah, firstly, at your age, like really, really, like, I didn't expect the thought process can be so good. So firstly, well appreciated. Okay. So let us come to the double diamond process wala part. Okay. So what I felt was there is this double diamond process which you explained here, right? Though you followed the double diamond process, I'm a little scared if people
Yeah.
might judge you more in terms of the process rather than more in terms of the formula of the process rather than what you did, because that made sense, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I feel let's push the double diamond process away from this particular part. Maybe in
Okay.
the conclusion or something, you can tell that you got inspired from the double diamond process, and
Hmm.
that's where you tried to experiment with it a little
Yeah.
less subtle, not
Okay.
this advertising. I know it is also there in the example project,
Hmm.
but I've told the same thing to her as well. But do that because I saw this happening, and that's why I'm advising. There's nothing wrong. Again, it's a good process. It is we follow it everywhere, uh, right? It's another way of saying the design thinking process, right? The
Yeah.
diagram you have put is also very good compared to a lot of other diagrams. So that way is good. For those who are wondering what double diamond process is, very quick summary. So what happens is, if you see, there are, like, first I have to explain about these triangles or the squares, where you have to notice these things. Observe this in the first research wala triangle. You have these two lines going outward. Okay. So, and you see the same thing in the ideation phase as well. There are these two lines going outwards, right? So these are called the divergent phases. The reason why it's called divergent is in these stages, when you research or when you ideate, let's talk about research, you try to explore as much as possible. You diverge, you try to, you know you don't really limit yourself. You try and bring in as much information as possible, right? You keep on diverging and going, you know picking up a lot of stuff. But on the other side, you will see these two arrows on the insights and prototype stages. In the insights, you see that there are these arrows going down, converging, and they're actually the converging stages. Okay. These are the places, this is the place where you have a lot of ideas, or you have a lot of research insights. Now you want to converge and work on only a few of them. You want to, you know you don't want to get confused with a lot of things, but you want to solidify what problem you really want to solve over there, right? Therefore you converge. So the same thing with prototypes. You have a lot of ideas, but what is that you will actually finally want to solve, right? Those specific solutions, you again converge over there. So it forms this two diamonds. Therefore, it's called double diamonds. You diverge, you research a lot, and from that you converge on your insights. Again, from whatever insights you have, whatever problems you have, specific problems you have identified, you ideate and brainstorm and come to a lot of ideas. And again, from those you converge and build your prototypes, right? So the only thing is, one more thing, Sanjana, have to tell you is the double diamond process was kind of ideally written more than just a design thinking process. It was also about delivering stuff built more than just the design phase. It's also about developing stuff. Therefore, you also see that discover, define, develop, and deliver also as the part, right? Though you can translate them loosely into design delivery and design development, but it also kind of relates to the agile development process, the lean development process, the tech development process, frankly speaking, right?
Yeah.
So again, my only advice here is, though this is a beautiful process, we are following it in and out in a very non-textbook manner. I'll advise you to not bias people to think that, oh, you had a structure and you just religiously followed it without asking questions. You just don't want them to think like that. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So be clear about it. Okay. Okay. Uh, Next coming. So yeah, I really liked how you defined your secondary research, and I liked how you use the Pareto principle, to kind of say that most of these effects are coming from these 20% causes,
Yeah.
and how you kind of diverged. I just, so there is this paragraph in primary research which says, why is primary research important? Where you have went very generic. So you go to this paragraph on near primary research. So you brought a lot of second and secondary research, right? Now you explained saying that, hey, it is important to ensure real data is taken directly from users. Why does it help? You also wrote that we'll have control over the data and all these things and avoid assumptions being made, right?
Yeah.
You'll have to connect it with the secondary research. People need to, when we ask a question in terms of why is primary research important over here, and even the before paragraph, right? The next stage involves collecting of data firsthand. You told in your video, hey, is it important? Yes, because, but your reason was not because your project demands it. It's because it is generally important. Now,
Yeah.
it's also generally important to avoid sampling bias. But you can't do it at your stage, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, about sampling bias, I'll speak separately later. But there are like 1,200 biases which can come, which you'll have to avoid. But you can't do all
Okay.
that, right? So your problem, your time, everything dictates that. So in that paragraph, the next stage involves collection of first-hand data. You need to explain, now that I got secondary insights, now that these are the things which I've learned from this, it's time to go and get first-hand data about these things. You need to establish what is it that you want to understand from your primary research.
Okay.
For everyone to understand this a little bit clear, so what she did in the secondary research, she got some stats, right? She even told that in the video, hey, you know what? So let's say let's go to that conflicting insight which you got. Go a little bit up, right? She got something like, um, people want a lot of content, but something, what was that? They want a lot of content, but again, on the other
Yeah,
hand,
they
they find it
want
very difficult to
like
discover.
they want too much content, but they want to also like discuss.
It is disturbing them. It's difficult for them to go and select
Yeah.
one type of content, right? Now, this is insight.
Yeah.
All of it is really, this is an insight which she found by doing secondary research, meaning research which has already been done, right? This is second-hand research. Someone has done the research. She is using that in her project, right? That's why it's called secondary research. Now, what is primary research? It is first-hand research. That means you yourself doing research. That is primary research. So, how is it that you got this insight from a second-hand research? Now you want to really understand the depth behind it, right? You want to understand why this is happening, right? That has to be established. Got it, Sanjana?
Yes. Got
Your
it.
insights in secondary research have to lead to primary research, not just here, guys, everywhere. Tomorrow you're working in a company, whatever it is, you get some research insights. If you want to look for first-hand data, the base has to come from your second-hand data first. Or else what will happen is, There are 1,000 things which you can ask in a primary research interview, right? When you are researching, when you are talking to people, there are like a lot of things which you can talk to, right?
Yeah.
But going and understanding the reason you do secondary research first is because you get this second-hand data. It will define what is it that there are some certain assumptions which got validated, but you want to really understand more about the behaviors which is causing this. For that reason, you go and do your primary research. You need to write that down. Got it clear?
Yeah.
Right? Uh, Also, you'll see that there's a lot of secondary data is usually quantitative in nature because there were quantitative studies which were done and you're getting data from that, right? Quantitative studies can be done even as a part of primary research as well, right? But it's very costly. Therefore, we don't do. I mean, I can also conduct a big survey, right? Like you're quoting some surveys in your secondary research. I can also conduct a survey, but I don't have the money to do that, right? Therefore, we build a lot of quantitative data from secondary research and we produce qualitative data in our primary research. What I'm telling is, because it's secondary data, you're pulling literally pulling data from the internet. It's easy to go and get statistics out of it because the internet has a lot of statistics, right? But then qualitatively, it's very difficult to go and trust whatever data is sitting over there. Quantitative, you can say that 50 people agreed, 44 people disagreed. It's there. Can you just scroll down a little bit? It's sitting over there, right? 50 people agreed to the 50% agreed to this, 44% disagreed to it, right? It's easy to trust these statistics when it's coming from secondary sources, right? But how will you know the reason why? Why do they agree to this? Why do they disagree to that? What are the qualitative, like, what are the thoughts they have? What are they doing? How do you know all this? You'll have to go and do a first-hand research. You have to talk to people, right? And that is qualitative in nature. You got this, guys? You got the understanding between what is qualitative and quantitative, right? Of course, you want to understand more. You can read more about qualitative and quantitative research insights. There's also a book called Just Enough Research by Erica Hall. You guys can read that book if you have time. Just Enough Research by Erica Hall. You can also go and watch a research-based, conducting research on LinkedIn Learning, the lynda.com or LinkedIn Learning videos. You can watch, or you can just stick to what's written in Mastery as well. But yeah, just giving an idea. So that's one thing. So, you built your user sets, right?
Yeah.
Though there is absolutely no rule in terms of how your user sets can be built, I felt largely you built your user sets on one demographic or on the amount of time they spend on watching these platforms or something like that,
Yeah. How often do they use it?
right? Which is fine. I mean, at your level it's fine, but if I do it, I would have defined my user sets not just based on one. uh, Again, your argument can be saying that, hey, this is a major differentiator, but there are also other factors involved, right? The type of content they watch or the frequency of the content they watch, that is what you have picked as the main differentiator.
Yeah.
The type of content they watch, right, can be different. And oh, you actually wrote it, right? I missed it. Okay, got it. Better understanding that, but in the end, my interaction with users, I felt it was the best to do it on base of frequency. Wow. I didn't even expect you'll write and justify this. Wow, that's good. That's good. That's really good. This is what happens in interviews also, guys. I mean, I'll be like, why did you just, you know, have your user sets based on frequency? And then you'll be like, you know what, just scroll up. Like, yeah, see, this because of this, I thought I should do it on based on frequency. And we're like, wow, because as long as you have the reason, as long as you think that this is how it is done, then who am I to question it? Right? Wow, this is good. This is good. So good. As long as you have the data, so you have your way of doing it and you have a justification, it's fine. I thought I'll add a little bit more mix into defining these user sets, not just the frequency, but again, it's fine, right? So that's one more thing. The next thing is it's good. Go to the wireframes. The remaining parts, defining and all this, are very pretty good. You could have your paper wireframes are too neat. But maybe you can think so neatly. I don't know. You're artistic, Sanju. Maybe your brain can do it that way. But that's again that depends on your skill. But what I felt is you also highlighted it, saying that you try to do your high fidelity wireframes and you wasted a lot of time or something, or you're telling avoid making wasting time. But I think you should explain it a little bit more. What happened?
I directly started making these screens basically. I felt like I should have just, focused on the components, focused on what I want like on the screen as a layout first before like trying to figure out all the color, background color, and figuring out some things that doesn't like should matter only
Yeah.
towards the end. I felt
So
I
you
should have done
should highlight it a little bit more.
that. Okay.
You wrote that make an iterative wireframes in Grayscale and avoid wasting time. You'll have to clearly mention that this kind of wasted your time and then you got back and you did this and something like that. That has to be mentioned.
Okay.
Or else what will happen is there's a chance people will ask you, what are these wireframes? How do they make sense?
Hmm.
Like you just don't have text and icons and images filled, and why are you calling these wireframes, and how do they help you present your idea, and you'll not have an answer for it, right?
Yeah.
You'll have to tell them that this is what you thought will help you, but it didn't help you, and then you went back to the basics and kind of built your solution from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, for an evaluative thing like this, right, you go and understand a product and try and make it better. You don't even have to make uh, what do you say, paper wireframes. Like paper wireframes is fine, but you don't have to compulsorily go and make a wireframe from scratch. You don't do it. Let's say you're making the screen better. I just directly take a screenshot of the screen, and then on top of it, I'll go and put my low fidelity wireframe. You got it?
Yeah.
I'll break the picture. I'll just keep copy pasting those particular screenshots. I'll write the text and all. That is how I build my low fidelity wireframes. You got
Okay.
it?
Yeah.
I don't have to necessarily rebuild the whole screen to go and make a wireframe.
Yeah.
You get what I said, guys? You get this? You have a screenshot. You take a screenshot, work on it, like as if you took a printout of that screenshot and you're writing on it, kind of stuff, right? The same way on Figma, you can take a screenshot, put it over there, break the picture, right? And work on your ideas. This is exactly what we do as well, right? In Amazon or wherever you are, we have existing products. We are only trying to build better versions of it, right? In a lot of products, evaluative products, right? There are also exploratory ones, but that's a different thing. But what we do, we take screenshots, we start ideating on the screenshots. And once the ideation is done, wireframe part is done, that is when we go and build the final UI for it, right? Um, of course, I also go and my book is also filled with lot of these screens and all. Very roughly, I do, right? I write down a lot of thoughts. I very roughly make screens and stuff just to make sure you know I understand what's going and all. That's it, right? Uh, I don't even have like complete flows as my wireframes. As soon as I get the idea and as soon as I understand what needs to be done and stuff, I stop. That's it, right? Um, so this is my original work. Okay, I'm not showing any fancy stuff. This is what I've not shown also. I never shown this to my company also. Because at our stage and all, nobody cares about, things happen in a very different manner. We're supposed to do all this and automatically the results will come, right? So but yeah, so your reference are too neat, that and this you have to mention clearly that was a waste of your time, and what did you do after that? Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Okay. I got it.
Awesome. Next, you utilize Gestalt so principles. I think you should, good you did that. Because you did that, what I want you to do to take your thing to the next level is
Okay.
explain how Gestalt principles are working in your screens.
Okay.
That is one thing. Okay, note that down. You understand. See, how is that you have used proximity? How is that you have used similarity and continuation to actually go and build your idea? You'll have to explain
Hmm.
that. It'll
Okay.
it'll take you to, it'll take it to the next level. But the next thing is you will have to do a little better job in building your UI.
Okay.
Do the components and design systems exercise. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
what will happen is you will have an understanding of common design elements. So just go to any set of screens over there. Yep. So let's say look at the nav bar, right? Bottom nav. It's a very non-standard bottom nav. Basically, you have built it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right. This nav bar, you took icons and you put it yourself. You should not do that. Nav bars
Okay.
have a lot of interaction involved in them, right? Because they're like selected states, they're like defaults, selected, unselected, disabled. A lot of states will be there. They're buttons. They can be four. They can, the 3 to 5 is in the range. So a lot of design has already been thought and has been done to actually make a bottom bar. So you can't reinvent the wheel over there. You will have to use an existing bottom bars consistent and standard framework. You can define your own colors and icons, but that's a different thing. You got what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it.
You can't reinvent a bottom nav. You can't redesign a bottom nav. You'll have to use an existing standard. Okay.
Okay.
So go
Okay.
and read the material design guidelines largely to get an understanding of bottom nav. There are also multiple other guidelines, but to get started, you can read the material design guidelines because it's well documented over there. What are, about all the accessibility and about all the interactions and all these related to the bottom nav. Okay. Slowly I'll see if I can make a, I have a
Yeah.
big script which I have written with the help of a student explaining all about bottom nav. I'll release it sometime. But yep, go and not just this, anywhere else, in remaining parts of your UI as well, right? With be it buttons, be it text hierarchy and all this stuff, you will have to use standards, consistency and standards. Very important.
Okay.
What are people already used to? Am I using a standard element? So very simple to crack this. Go and observe design. Do that components exercise. It'll do it. But the exercise simply is nothing but going and observing a lot of design elements in multiple existing products. That's it, right? You observe what are the elements which are sitting right now, and you'll get a lot of inspiration and understand why it is being done in that way. You'll see a lot of components being very similar in multiple apps. You'll see the behavior and the interactions being very similar in multiple apps, and you'll understand the importance of it being so.
Okay. Yeah.
You got it?
Got it.
Right. For example, all of you can today go and, observe bottom nav on multiple apps, write down what is similar, and write down what was changing. You'll observe that the patterns, the interaction patterns, and the placements and sizes are all mostly similar. It's only the styling, the iconography, the typography, right, or the colors. These are the only things changing, but mostly everything else is very, very similar. You'll observe it. Okay. So, yep. Okay. With that being said, yes, or else, yeah, I think we came to the end of the project.